Jordan, if you all set to go, come on up. I'm going to have some more scriptures read here as part of Mother's Day celebration. And it's kind of a directive that God gives parents and particularly mothers, and I'm going to have Jordan read that to you.
I heard that. Okay, I'm going to be in Proverbs 6, going through verses 20 through 23. It says, "My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart, and tie them about thy neck. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. And when thou awakest, it shall talk with thee. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life."
Basically, Solomon is saying here, listen to your mother. Listen to your mother. You know, I particularly like the way that Solid Rock does celebrations like Mother's Day and all, because I know that it's kind of a touchy thing with some ladies, because maybe you don't have any children, or you missed the opportunity, or it just God didn't see fit, but yet you still wanted to be part of the celebration. Well, I love it that the girls include everybody, because I think they do. A godly woman is a godly woman, whether they have children or not. And they should, and man, if you find one of them, you should always value that. Last night, Donna and I had a wonderful opportunity to go to a church down in Nelson County, where in their Family Life Center, they were holding what was called a special needs prom. And what it was a dress-up prom for all the people in the surrounding communities that are special needs, that maybe they never got to go to school, or they had to go to another type of school that didn't have any social activities, and they look forward to it every year, and they have a wonderful banquet for them. And then Nikki put on a 2-hour concert, and they got to come up in front of the platform and dance and whatever. It made me dizzy watching a couple of them do that, and they got some energy. And Nikki was so kind to those folks, and they really love him. He left the big stage and went down there with the mic and was singing and holding the mic, letting them sing and dancing with them. All my respect to you, brother. That was a good job. I appreciate seeing people's hearts when they're not just here, to see how they treat people. And so they got included into something very special. And I appreciate watching Nikki and how he did that and how kind he was to them. Well, it's Mother's Day. And all of us think about our mothers and significant things that they did and that they said. I never could win an argument with my mother. She would hang the phone up before I got to the punchline, and then wait till later and get me again. And my mother had the right attitude on raising children and being a strong presence. She told me a story one time of a little boy in the classroom, and you've heard this many times. And the teacher was teaching math, and she asked the little boy, she said, "Suppose your mother had 6 oranges, and she was going to divide it equally between the two of you. How many would each of you get?" He said, "Why, I'd get 5 and Mama would get 1. And the teacher said, "You don't know your math." He said, "No, you don't know my mama." And that's the way a mama is. Nothing can replace mama. Special, special thing. Mine has been gone 8 years now, and it still feels like it was last week. My mother had a very strong presence in the family and even in the church, and she had my horrible sense of humor that got both of us in trouble all the time. Mothers are a significant part of a child's life. The Bible sees them as someone to be honored, a valuable vessel. Not only they bring life into the world, but they are worthy of being blessed. A mother is a teacher, a caregiver, and the one who shows a child typically their first expression of what God's love is. A lot of times, mama's the Bible that the child reads. And so it is so important, moms, to raise your kids to love Jesus. Oh, Lord, I can't emphasize that enough. I can't emphasize that enough. The book of Proverbs, which is also the book that talks about wisdom, has the most to say about moms. And that is a good sign of how God looks at mothers. Many times in the Bible, the mothers are mentioned right along with fathers, and sometimes even more prominently. They are equal in the eyes of God, even though they are created differently. Exodus 20:12 says, "Honor your father and your mother, that you may live long in the land your Lord is giving you." Now, I realize that that is a promise from God, that if you honor your mom and dad, and that he'll prolong your life, but there's a physical expression for this as well. Because if you listen to your mom, you will stay alive. There are many times that my mother would warn me about something, and ever so often I would heed it, and when I didn't, she stayed up praying until I got back home. I have done some really stupid things in my life. Y'all can look at me and tell that's probably true. And my mom was always there praying for me that God would save my life until I could get some sense. And she did that for me until about the day she passed away. But you should honor your father and your mother because they have a lot of things to say. It's one of the 10 commandments that Moses gave to the Israelites from the Lord. The definition of honor can mean different things to different people, but overall, we must respect, love, and take care of our mother no matter what. It's your mom. Proverbs 31:28, it said, "Her children arise and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her." And there's another part of the verse that talks about that because of this godly woman, her husband is known in the gates. Now, that's an old English expression, and it's an old Hebrew expression as well. And what it means that anybody that sat in the gate of a city was normally a leader of the city. When you opened the gate to the city, the leaders were there to greet you. And because he had the right kind of wife, the right kind of woman, the right kind of mother, he was able to be the right kind of leader. A way to honor our mother is to always pray for her, prayers of thankfulness and blessing for all that she has done for her child. A lot of people cannot understand the full meaning of the word arise. It literally means it can be explained as standing, like how we stand to worship God. And many of us may stand when our mother enters the room or comes to the table or whatever. We should honor that woman, particularly a godly woman is such a treasure. I cannot emphasize that enough. And it's never too late to be a godly woman, and it's never too late to be a godly mother, even if your children are grown. I congratulate my mother, and I call her blessed for all of the things she did for me and my sister. The only time she did something that I greatly objected to was one day at supper. We were sitting, and I was living in Monroe then, and my mother was standing behind my dad. And she had been bringing the food to the table. And Daddy said, he called her Gertie. Gertie, you don't serve enough snaps and potatoes. That hit a nerve with her. And I saw her mouth form the words, I will fix him. So for the next 2 weeks, twice a day. Snaps is green beans for you Yankees, okay? We had snaps and potatoes twice a day. And every time when my sister and I got ready to go, Mama, how come you're... And she'd put her hand up for us to be quiet. And she was usually standing behind Daddy. She did that a lot in the early days. And so finally at the end of 2 weeks, my mother was standing there and she said, I give up. And Daddy turned around and said, what's wrong with you? What do you give up for? She said, for 2 weeks I have served you snaps and potatoes twice a day. He said, yes, I've noticed that, and thank you so much. I couldn't eat them things for years. And it backfired on her. But I still call her blessed. Proverbs 6:20, my son, keep your father's command and do not forsake your mother's teaching. My mother taught me a great deal of what I learned about the Bible. And when I went to college and was studying it, I already had a great working knowledge of it because my mother had taught me. And I wondered, where did she get all that knowledge from? And she said, I went to Sunday school and I had a good Sunday school teacher. Now Sunday school is a very valuable thing that you should not neglect. Not only did my mother teach me about the Bible, but one June night, it was a Saturday night in June of 1969. Now, I'm old, but I didn't put an ought in there anywhere, okay? Not 1909 or nothing like that. It was 1969 at the ripe old age of 12. Y'all can extrapolate my age from that. And I started asking her a lot of questions about the Lord. I'd been going to church all my life, but this time I was really open and interested in the things of the Lord. And so she took a Bible about this size and sat on the edge of the bed and opened it and led me to the Lord. And it changed my life. And what Mama did in that one evening made a big difference in a lot of people's lives because of what she did for me. And later on, the Lord called me to ministry. So don't ever think that what you're doing doesn't amount to much. You talk to your children about Jesus and you pray with them and you show them from the Bible what it says, and you never know what will come of that. But it'll always be good. And so she would explain to me so much from the Bible. She read it every day. I have one of her Bibles that she has written in. And so it's easy to preach a sermon because she's got all the good points underlined already. Now y'all know where I get some of my best ones from Mama's Bible. So don't forsake your mother's teaching. Proverbs 17:6, children's children, that's grandchildren by the way, are a crown to the aged, and parents are the pride of their children. We're talking about a lot of you being grandmas, some of you even great grandmas. Now, my grandmother was strict on my mother and her siblings growing up. But then when Mama got married and had me, and I did something stupid, and my mother spanked me, my grandmother wouldn't speak to her for 2 weeks. You see, that's the way grandmothers work. The grandchildren can do no wrong. Even though they rode herd on the kids growing up, the grandkids is a whole different thing. Now, I step back and look inward and see, and my grandchildren are a whole lot more thugs than my children ever thought of being. But now I can laugh at what they're doing because I ain't got to correct them. How about that? But they are a crown. They truly are. Now the psalmist in Psalm 139:13, he said, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." I want everybody to understand that your unborn baby is no surprise to God. That never caught him off guard. He has everything planned and mapped out. Nothing surprises him. Good or bad, he knows it all. And it is God that forms that baby in the womb. Always remember that God has a plan for all babies. He has it laid out. And as a result of that, we have no right whatsoever to play God and to attempt to change that. I can't even believe I'm saying these things behind a pulpit today, but I remember the time when childbirth was precious and protected in generations past. It was unheard of to do away with your baby. And now we saw a whole group of Democrat congressmen and senators and a so-called president wearing pins on their shirt that says, "I love abortion." There is a special place in hell for these people if they don't get right with God for loving abortion. Now, God will forgive you. If that's ever been your case before, God will forgive you and restore you. But I'm sorry he's not going to while you walk around with a pen that says, "I love abortion." That is straight from the pits of hell. There is no question about it. Respect that unborn baby and be like the mothers of generations past and do everything you can to protect that child. It is. That is nothing but the devil at work. That's absolutely true. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 1, to bolster what Jordan read. "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." Now, for any young person watching, listening, or sitting in here, whatever, I want you to understand that God is serious about you obeying your parents. You shouldn't have to have your mom tell you, "Wait till your daddy gets home." I heard that only twice in my life, and I learned to change my ways real quick and make it straight with mom before daddy got home. I cut deals and did everything I could.
I never heard it.
And by the way, I want all young people to understand that's listening to me. Your mama is not a dinosaur for being concerned about you. She is not out of touch. She's not what do y'all call folks that ain't with it anymore? What do you call? What do you refer to them as? We used old fogey. Huh? Oh, what? Okay, what? Fuddy-duddy? I don't know if the young people use any of these expressions anymore, but it don't make no difference. They ain't that. Okay? Your mama's not a dinosaur for being concerned about you, and I'm going to tell y'all why. And she wouldn't like this, but I'm going to be honest with you. Chances are she's already been where you are right now. And she knows how stupid it was, and she's keeping you from trying it.
Thank God for tracking devices.
Absolutely. And so your mama knows what's out there. You might think she's being too protective of you or hovering around you. You'll thank God she did one of these days. You really will. Don't get upset with her for doing that, because she could just completely neglect you and throw you to the wolves. You need to be glad when your mother is concerned enough about you to warn you about things that are coming. Isaiah 66:13, "As a mother comforts her child, so will I comfort you, and you will be comforted over Jerusalem." There is nothing like the comfort of a mom when you're upset. You know, when a kid falls down and scrape something or bleeding or bust something or whatever, the first one they usually run to is Mama, because Mama knows how to comfort them. And I'll tell Donna, would you stop that? Let them grow up. Thank God she ignores me and goes right on with it. I watch Donna on the phone with the kids, and she talks with them as if they were still 10 or 12 years old, because in her mind they still are, even though they're grown with children of their own and able to do this or that. In a mother's eyes, her job is still to comfort them. 1 Timothy 5:12, treat younger, 5:1 and 2. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. This is a letter that Paul wrote to Timothy, who was a pastor, and was saying how we are to treat ladies particularly as mothers or sisters, and show them respect and show them love and show them honor with absolute purity. Because I think ladies deserve that. So many women today are mistreated horribly, and that should not ever be the case. That should never be named within the Christian realm. We should always look at them as that. And then finally, Proverbs 23:25, may your father and mother rejoice, may she who gave you birth be joyful. I don't know about y'all, but I want my mother to be proud of me. I do. And I don't know exactly what the scriptures refer to when it talks about them being there and being aware. And I don't know if they're all watching us or whether they are, but they are aware of what we are doing. They know what we are doing from heaven. And I know that my mother's teaching was that she would be proud of me, not in how much money I make. If that's true, she's not proud of me at all. How much land you can accumulate and how many things you have. Let me tell y'all something about accumulating things. It becomes a curse when you have to move.
Amen.
When Donna and I moved, I bet we've had 1,000 conversations. What do y'all want to do with this stuff? I don't care. Do whatever you want to do with it. That don't matter. Things don't matter. But what my mother was concerned with, because she was a very spiritual lady, was how my walk with the Lord has been. She was always concerned about that. My mother, when she still had her health halfway, was very involved with the work of the church. There were a lot of behind-the-scene things that my mother did to take care of stuff. She could stretch. She paid the church. She was the treasurer. She could stretch $1 better than the Christian Children's Fund. Well, just $1 a month, you can provide 3 meals a day and a college education. She could just about do that for $1 a month. Boy, she could make it stretch. She could pinch a penny so tight that a booger would pop out of Lincoln's nose. That was crude, wasn't it? Thought I'd want to see if y'all were awake. And so she took care of things, and she made phone calls and set this up and set that up. And it took several people to replace her when she died. But the last thing she told me, pretty much before she died, is she said, take care of the church. You can bet I will. You can bet. That hit home with me, and I will fight to keep things going with all that is within me, because that meant a lot to her as well. Whenever I would go to her for advice, she would hold her hand up and say, hang on a minute, how do you want this? And I mean, what do you mean? She said, do you want this as your mother or as a member of the church? Because that was a whole different opinion. And sometimes I'd want to hear both, and I'd pick the best one. But a godly woman, wow, what a treasure. I'm married to one. I was kidding her. I said, boy, when all the chips are down, she's everybody's mama. Boy, they all come to her for stuff. And Donna has shown me in the 38 years we've been together. Actually, it'll be 39 in July when we met. She has shown me what a godly mother looks like as well, a godly wife. And I couldn't trade her for anything. Her children do call her blessed. They do. And so we look at these things as a treasure. Ladies, I want you all to know that we consider all of y'all, no matter what your current condition concerning motherhood or lack thereof, we look at all of y'all as treasures. And men, I want you to treat the women of this church as a treasure, because they really are. We need more godly women in this world. If we had more godly women, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have to put up in this world. We really wouldn't. If more women would be concerned with what Jesus thinks rather than living for the world. And that makes more of a difference than anything else. It is true what they say, that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And it does. It really does. And how a person turns out is, a lot of it is dependent on how mama behaves. Bottom line. And so thank God for those that do love Jesus and want to serve him. Well, shall we stand? And this is a time that maybe you want to come and thank God for your mom. And if she's alive, you go and tell her that to her face. Or maybe you have another prayer need, something else on your heart that maybe is not related at all to that. Well, we're going to have some folks stand down here to pray with you if you need that, as Candy plays the song of invitation.